Freshest item on the menu, oysters. I've got two different types today. I've got you the Pacific and the Rock, okay? Now, two things very, very important with oysters. They have to be fresh, okay? So that way you can tell two shells, dull sound, still very fresh there. Second thing is you need a good oyster knife. So I'm going to show you two ways of opening oysters. The way I've been brought up teaching and teaching a lot of chefs is going through what we call the hinge. So we call that the beak or the hinge and the bill. So oysters grow out that way. This is sort of the latest growth of shell on the outside, so it breaks off quite easy. A lot of chefs go through that way because of the easy access of taking off the top shell, which we call the shuck. So here we go. Holding the product gently, two movements. I'm going to move the shell back and forth. I'm going to move the knife back and forth. And with that movement, we're going to make a little bit of an aperture just to pop the shell. It's it popped there. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to run the blade across the top of the shuck. That's the shuck or top shell. And there we have still the very fresh oyster. Still attached to the bottom shell. Keep all the juices in there. That's the muscle there that attaches both shells together. We call that the adductor muscle. And with your clean oyster knife, gently underneath, we're going to cut it, release it, and then just turn it over for presentation. Now, how good does that look? The other way that a lot of chefs go through is through what we call the bill. The only problem is sometimes we get a little bit of shell, a little bit of grit there. So you do need a little bowl of water just to wash out the grit. But I'm going to show you how we do it. We go in very gently there. And when you've made a little bit of a gap, you put the knife through and again, take off that top shell, all right? Sometimes you'll find a little bit of shell on the outside. That's the latest growth. So that comes off clean. And you never use your hands. Just use the knife always. Then we're going to sever that muscle again. And there we go. We turn it over for presentation. So they're ready to be eaten. Now with my other smaller knife, we go for the rock oyster. Now this rock oyster is a little bit harder to actually open because it's a lot of flatter shell. So with a smaller knife, I go in through the hinge again, and what I do is I just use a little bit of the blade and pop it. And I just lift it a little bit, slide the blade along the top of the shell, and take off the shuck. Cut the muscle, and away you go. Okay folks, that's it for today. Oyster lovers, live and love longer.